Welcome. This episode of Great River Children's Museum Family Fun Club includes stories from Africa shared by immigrant and refugee members of our community. Their stories are focused on gardening and cooking. Participants are from the African Women's Alliance, and all of them garden in the gardens developed by the Central Minnesota Sustainability Project. So I was wondering if you all could say a little bit about why gardening is important to you, why it's important to people who have come to the United States from Africa.
So gardening is very important because you really want to know where your food comes from. Like you have vegetables, where do vegetables comes from? They come from the soil. So you go there, you plant it. It's also very communal. You get to know other people and it's very peaceful because sometimes you might be alone in your house, but going to the garden, you get a chance, to talk to other people. It helps with dementia. It also increases social capital. That is why most people, when they do come here, they like to garden because it's very, very good for our health.
That is true, Eunice. And when I've been part of the community garden here in St. Cloud from the time it started. The idea was it just made me so happy because it made me remember um, where food came from when I grew up. Food came from the garden and the people going to the garden to work, going to the garden to pick food, to come and prepare. So for me, um, I do it with my son now, Gani. But the first time I took him to the garden, he told me he was going to stay in the car because he didn't want his shoes to get dirty. But then I said, no, you don't your shoes are not going to get dirty. Even if they get dirty, they will be washed. Soil is not dirt. Soil is actually what life comes from. And then from there, he started to help me. And of late, his favorite thing to do is to pick zucchini. Picking zucchini from the garden is his job the last 2 years.
And for me, gardening is very therapeutic. I just started 2 years ago, but just turning over the soil or watering the garden, getting out of my house and being able to do these things have been very therapeutic for me. My kids are grown up and they've actually nowhere around me now. And so it gives me a space and a time to interact with others and at the same time find my inner peace as I go through that daily chore.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to show a little bit about how children can experience gardening in some ways in a children's museum. But thank you for sharing about gardening and how you've been doing it here. Hi, welcome. I'm Jane Ellison, and I am at Great River Children's Museum in the Play, Explore, and Learn Lab, where right now we have an exhibit called Storyland. One of the stories in this exhibit is Peter Rabbit, the tale of Peter Rabbit. And if you've read that book, you might know that Peter Rabbit scoots under the fence, gets to Mr. McGregor's garden, and steals vegetables. In our Family Fun Club today, we are exploring gardening and cooking in different countries. And so I brought you here to see how at a children's museum, families can play about gardening, planting, picking, eating food. Here we've got a place where children can plant radishes, pick them, give them to Peter Rabbit, plant cabbage, pick it, plant potatoes and onions. This is a place where children can play with food and play about gardening. We'll be talking about gardening and telling some fun stories together today during Family Fun Club. Hi, everybody. At a meeting of the African Women's Alliance that I was at, I got to hear some great stories about gardening and cooking in various different African countries. And I wanted to bring those stories to you. So I asked some of my friends who are part of the African Women's Alliance and who have moved to the United States from various different countries in Africa. I asked them to come and help tell some of the stories that I got to hear about gardening and cooking in Africa. And first, I'm just going to have you three introduce yourselves. And by the way, my name is Jane, and I have been in many of these Family Fun Club videos, but I am a representative from the Great River Children's Museum, which is producing these Family Fun Club events. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Why don't we start with Lynn?
Lynn from Sierra Leone.
Thank you. And Eunice?
I'm Eunice from Ghana.
And Florence?
I'm Florence from Uganda.
All right, thank you. Florence is going to step out for a moment, and the other two will tell one story, and then Florence will come in and tell a story as well. So have you ever heard of countries having competitions? There have been competitions about which country is going to get to the moon first. And there have been competitions about which country has the tallest building. And here's a story of a competition between cooks in West Africa.
So this is the story of countries in West Africa and who has the best jollof rice.
So Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about when did this start, this competition about who makes the best jollof rice?
To be honest with you, Jane, I can't tell. I think it started way before I was born because we like competing about food.
Wow. So do you know how it started or why it started?
I think West Africans were very competitive people and we're passionate about our food. And I think that's the reason why it would start. And to tell you how it did start, I cannot tell that also. But like I said, I'm sure it's because of our passions for food. That's why it's been thriving all this.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So Eunice, what are the countries that are involved in this?
So the countries are Gambia, Senegal, Ghana, of course, woo, Nigeria, Benin, Cameroon, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Togo, and Mali.
Wow, that is a lot of countries. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was so many countries that were involved. So why don't you two tell us a little bit about who makes the best jollof rice?
Well, it is believed that we make the best jollof rice from Sierra Leone, but who would like to give up to that? I know Eunice would not.
Of course, the best is always coming from Ghana with our rich culture, you know. So the rice that we use, how we cook it, is very tasty and juicy.
I would like to disagree. I'm sorry, because we put a lot of effort, a lot of passion. Like I always say, you see, the best ingredient in any food is love, and that's what we have in Sierra.
What do you think, Eunice? Is that true?
Oh, of course, we also cook with love, you know, and yeah, the best medicine that you can always have. We have the meat, we have the spices that even when you are sick, you know, you can have jollof rice and that will make you very strong. And you just have to comply.
I would have wished I will, but based on what I can do with my own jollof rice, I don't think I can comply with that. We just have the best ever in the world. Just try it and you.
And you know what? Just in 2019, Ghana won the best jollof rice.
I'm sorry, I beg to differ. I had otherwise. I had that Sierra Leone based on all the ingredients that we put in it. Oh, it's certainly the best.
So I know that the two of you have friends who are from some of those other countries. So what would they think about what you're saying?
Trust me, they're part of the debate. You see how many countries are involved. So it will be a all year, all season debate. It never ends. We have to prove our passions, and that's it in our cooking.
That's wonderful. So Eunice, is it something that goes on all year long? And how do people communicate about this? And where do you talk about it?
So usually in our homes, or when I do go for a party, or when I do visit a friend and she has jollof rice made, I'll be like, oh, I wish she had told me. I would have brought the best jollof rice, to the party. Yeah.
That's great. And do people ever get really upset with each other, or is it all in good fun?
I believe it's all in good fun because we all believe we eat well, and therefore we stay passionate about what we eat well. And so I believe it's all in good fun. We just enjoy the passion of sharing what we do the best in Africa,
That's wonderful.
eating.
So, Lynn, can you tell me a little bit about how are the recipes different? Like when Eunice makes her jollof rice and you make yours, is it with different ingredients or what makes it different?
There's actually not much difference in the ingredients used. It's just how we prepare it. We prepare it differently. Take, for example, I found chicken pot pie here in America, versions of it, but all come to the same conclusion. So it's just how it's prepared. We do it differently based on our own culture. And so therefore we think of ourselves as the best in terms of achieving that.
And Eunice, do you actually put different spices in when you make jollof rice?
Yeah, the spices that we do have in Ghana. So those are the spices that I mainly cook with. And also the rice that you cook with also makes a lot of difference. Some people use the basmati rice, others use jasmine, others also use the long grain rice.
Okay, so it would be rice, but it could be different kinds of rice. All right.
Right.
Well, thanks for sharing about jollof rice. I had never heard about this until I went to that meeting and you all started talking amongst yourselves. There were some other people there too, and they too were pretty passionate about that their jollof rice was the best. So that was really interesting for me to hear. And for those of you children and parents that are listening to this, we have a recipe that on the site that you can go to find jollof rice, and you and your kids can try making some jollof rice and seeing how you can make it the best jollof rice yourself. Like what would make yours the best? So go ahead and make this recipe yourselves and see what you like. Thank you for all of this. I'm going to turn it off. So Florence, one of you was talking about how knowing where food comes from and that food comes from the soil and being able to go pick food and then cook food, et cetera, was so important. And I know you told a funny story about when you were a little girl and you were living in Africa, and that you something about food and food coming from the soil. Do you want to tell that story?
Yes, Jane, I will. Actually, what I did was, to me, everything came from the from the soil. So I loved fish so much that I just wish like we could just go to the garden and pick it, because we didn't. I loved it so much, but it wasn't served every day. It was like we only got it when my mom went to the garden. So I said, like, why don't we plant? So I planted fish eyes.
Fish.
I planted
Oh my
fish
goodness.
eye. Yeah. And my mom didn't stop me. She didn't say anything. She just said, go ahead. So I planted the fish eye, and I kept checking. Like every morning I'll come, is it germinating yet? Is it coming up? And it never came up. So and then later I was told, no, fish don't grow from the garden.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you, Florence. For sharing.
Yeah.
So find that find that recipe for jollof rice and see if you can make the best jollof rice and enjoy cooking as a family. Thank you for listening.